It's Monday, January 24. This is the news on PBCJ. I'm Simone Absalom Gale. Government Senator Don Webby says he will be working to establish the unemployment insurance scheme. Addressing the Senate on Friday, Senator Webby noted the negative effects of the COVID-19 pandemic on the job market.
Governments across the world have been responding to the impact of COVID-19 pandemic by supporting the most vulnerable segments of their population to face the economic hardships brought on by the economy. Mr. President, I borrow the words of the late Edward Seaga. It takes cash to care.
The unemployment insurance scheme was posited over a year ago by Finance Minister Dr. Nigel Clark. He had said the Planning Institute of Jamaica would be tasked with undertaking the feasibility of the scheme. Senator Webby, who was closing the State of the Nation debate, said an unemployment insurance scheme could be used as a social protection mechanism.
Unemployment insurance is a social protection mechanism that can buffer the effects of income loss and create a safety net for vulnerable Jamaicans. I am looking forward, and I'm going to be monitoring it personally, the completion of the unemployment insurance feasibility study under the direction of the Ministry of Finance. We need to get that study completed quickly.
Chief Medical Officer in the Ministry of Health and Wellness, Dr. Jacqueline Bessessa-McKenzie, is urging more Jamaicans to get vaccinated against COVID-19, especially pregnant women. Speaking at a recent virtual media brief, she shared that there is an increase in the number of pregnant women hospitalized with COVID-19. Dr. Bessessa-McKenzie says measures were put in place for fetal and maternal monitoring of pregnant women on COVID-19 wards. Meanwhile, a number of patients requiring high-flow oxygen, who require up to 60 liters of gas per minute, has been on the rise.
And these are persons in late pregnancy or right around the delivery period, some of them in the postpartum after they have delivered period. We're seeing an increase in the number of patients with COVID at this time in this group. And this is not good, because what we have seen is that persons at this particular time in pregnancy, they tend to develop severe COVID.
The CMO says the number of seriously ill patients, which includes moderate, severe and critical categories, have also increased in the last 2 weeks.
Now, the severely ill persons and the critically ill persons, these are the persons that are going to demand more oxygen. And as these numbers increase, then we are going to have not just a challenge with bed occupancy, but also a challenge with oxygen supplies. Fortunately, this slide is showing that the number of persons that are on mechanical ventilation have not started to go up significantly over the last couple of weeks. Yes, we are seeing a slight increase, but not significantly so.
Someone across the globe died of COVID-19 related complications every 12 seconds last week. That information from the World Health Organization's Director General, Dr. Tedros Ghebreyesus. Despite these realities, he says the pandemic can end this year with equitable vaccination against the virus.
We have all of the tools to end the acute phase of this pandemic, but we have to use them equitably and wisely. Vaccine inequity is a problem we saw coming. Our experience with HIV, the H1N1 flu pandemic, and other global health challenges has taught us that market forces alone will not achieve equity. That's why we set up the Access to COVID-19 Tools Accelerator and its COVAX pillar.
The WHO has reported that half of its 194 member states missed the previous target of vaccinating 40% of their people by the end of 2021.
34 countries have still not been able to vaccinate 10% of their population, and 86 have vaccinated less than 40%. And of course, vaccines alone will not end the pandemic. Many countries need diagnostics, life-saving therapeutics, including oxygen and support for vaccine rollout. Only by working together in solidarity can we bring this pandemic to a close.
The WHO head was addressing the organization's weekly COVID-19 virtual update on Monday. The Upper House of Parliament has given the nod to the Pensions, Jamaica Constabulary Force Validation and Indemnity Act 2021. The bill was piloted by Minister without portfolio in the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation, Senator Matthew Samuda, on Friday. Senator Samuda explains that the bill seeks to validate the approval granted by the Governor-General for early retirement of members of the Jamaica Constabulary Force during the period February 13, 2019 to August 13, 2019.
Prior to April 1, 2018, a number of officers from the JCF applied for early retirement, having met the eligibility criteria of either attaining age 50 years or having completed 30 years in the JCF. In keeping with Section 56 of the Jamaica Constabulary Force Act, which is now repealed, which was in effect at that time for their application. Mr. President, on April 1, 2018, the Pensions Public Service Act 2017, which governs the grant and award of retiring benefits to members of the Government of Jamaica pension arrangement, including members of the JCF, came into effect. Now, what that, just for recollection, colleagues, what that did is it said even if you reached to 50, you had to have served your 30 years for retirement. That's passed, and we've agreed on that already. What this does is deal with the administrative issue that came from those that applied within a particular period in line with the old regulations.
He says the amended provisions now make some of the previous eligible applicants at the same time of application now ineligible for early retirement.
My information is that it is 23 officers that would have retired during the period that would have fit into this category.
He explains that the legislation would also provide a protection to those administering the cases of now approved retirees.
Mr. President, in order to give effect to the approvals granted by the Governor-General, the matter was referred to the Legislation Committee for the drafting of legislation to be considered, which would in effect validate that approval and give lawful effect to the approval for the officers to retire during the period February 13, 2019 and August 13, 2019, to indemnify all persons acting on behalf of the government from liability in relations thereto.
The public is being reminded that their voter identification cards are ready. The Electoral Office of Jamaica, EOJ, in a statement notes that electors who are in the process of renewing their voter ID and are awaiting the new card may request a letter of identity from the EOJ to be used as a provisional identification document in the interim. A letter of identity is generally addressed to the entity which requires the identification. To keep you abreast with the latest shifts and movements in the financial markets, we join Gabriel Thompson for the Business Report.
In foreign exchange trading for Friday, January 21, the US dollar sold for an average $156.71. The Canadian dollar ended trading at $125.16. The pound sterling traded for $211.71, and the euro sold for an average $179.09. In Friday's trading session, the following reflect the movement of the JSE indices. The JSE index advanced by 1,269 points to close at under 400,000 units. The junior market index advanced by 16 points to close at over 3,000 units. The JSE combined market index advanced by 1,336 points to close at over 400,000 units, and the JSE All Jamaican Composite Index advanced by 2,342 points to close at over 400,000 units. Overall market activity resulted from trading in 99 stocks, of which 50 advanced, 35 declined, and 14 traded firm. Stocks advanced for 138 Student Living Jamaica Limited, AMG Packaging and Paper Company Limited, and CAC 2000 Limited. Stocks declined for Access Financial Services Limited, Barita Investments Limited, and Caribbean Assurance Brokers Limited. Trading firm were 1834 Investments Limited, CAC 2000 9.5% preference shares, and Carreras Limited. Spirtree Spices Jamaica Limited was the volume leader with over 8.5 million units, followed by JMMB Group Limited with over 6.2 million units, and Wigton Wind Farm Limited ordinary shares with over 3.6 million units. In market data for oil, prices jumped on Monday as geopolitical tensions in Eastern Europe and the Middle East heightened concerns about an already tight supply outlook, while OPEC and its allies continued to struggle to raise their output. Brent crude futures rose 87 cents to $88.76 a barrel, reversing a 0.6% loss on Friday. West Texas Intermediate crude futures gained 86 cents to $86 a barrel, having fallen 0.5% on Friday. Both crude benchmarks rose for a fifth week in a row last week, gaining around 2% to hit their highest since October 2014. Prices are up more than 10% so far this year already on the concerns over tightening supplies. And before we go, here's another video from the Bank of Jamaica's Empowering You video series. In today's episode, you'll learn more about how to go about making financial goals.
Now that the savings account open, is a weight off my mind.
You work hard for your money, so I wasn't going to make you risk it.
You is a good man. A real Proverbs 31 woman. And the more I talk to you, is the more I convinced that we can achieve my vision for all of we. A sound financial future.
No, we have to set some financial goals.
How I going to decide my financial goals now?
Your dearly beloved wife will help you make the right decisions. I'm here to support you. We have to study the situation, see where we are, the stages of life, and the expenses we will face. The children's education is the first priority. Dion wants to be a doctor and Joel wants to open his own restaurant.
Him finally make up his mind?
Long time. And we have to put something aside for our retirement.
You don't think we're going to need some insurance too?
For sure. In case anything happens.
And the most important thing of all, we have to pay down on a house. We need a financial roadmap to navigate around all them things there.
Insurance and investment. Someone who is regulated by the FSC. I will call one in the morning.
And with that, we close this Monday edition of the Business Report inside the news on PBCJ. I'm Gabrielle Thompson. Pleasant viewing.
We look to news from the region. In Trinidad and Tobago, epidemiologist Dr. Avery Hines says evidence suggests that there are now chains of community transmission of the Omicron variant of concern.
The Ministry of Health confirmed there were 28 additional cases of the Omicron variant, 18 of which had no travel history and no contact with recent travelers. To date, this country has so far confirmed 56 cases of the highly transmissible variant of concern, and Dr. Hines says this number will continue to increase.
We are seeing increasing proportions of the new cases having no travel history, that indicates that there are chains of community transmission. And given the behavior of the Omicron variant in other populations, we know that what we see is probably a fraction of what's happening, so we do want to advise additional caution.
And based on the continued spread of the Omicron variant, Dr. Hines said while cloth masks have some effectiveness, people may want to further protect themselves with a higher grade of mask.
Continue to encourage everyone to use the masks they have, but be aware of the science that if you want to reduce your own personal risk of inhalation of droplets, especially in enclosed areas or that sort of environment, then yes, as the CDC has pointed out, those N95 masks will confer a higher level of benefit.
In Barbados, even before the newly elected government settles into office, one of the main bodies representing public service vehicle workers is calling for a sit-down to discuss a number of issues affecting the sector. More from Barbados today.
Communications, Information and Marketing Officer for the Alliance Owners of Public Transport, Mark Heath, tells Barbados Today that his organization has been calling for assistance for a number of years and is hoping that now the Mia Motley-led government has been given a new mandate, it will be open to assisting the PSV sector.
We are cognizant that the economy is very precarious and therefore government has a lot on its hands. I'm cognizant of that in my capacity as Communications, Information and Marketing Officer. But at the same time, I think that this sector, which contributes largely to Barbados' GDP, should be given priority. So I hope whichever Minister of Transport comes to office or holds that portfolio, that he or she and the government, by extension, will be amenable to some of our requests. And I still are calling for government to sit down and meet with us. I still maintain there should be a national conversation.
Haynes says he wants issues such as the fuel and excise tax, as well as the question of concessions discussed, as workers have been struggling as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic.
There is so much going on in the sector. For instance, the question of for concessions and so on for the sector, we are under stress in terms of the finances which are down as a consequence of COVID-19. The question of the fuel tax, which has not been touched, that is one of the things we will still put on the table. I believe that the excise tax can be looked at as a means of reducing some of the costs. I think government can look at this going forward, even if it's a short-term measure. But I think overall, having a conversation with us, we'll be able to put all of our proposals on the table. I cannot give you all the proposals right now, but I can speak for sure the fuel tax really is putting pressure on the sector. And this is a vexing issue for the workers in the sector, because basically it really bites into the finances of the daily intake.
In Grenada, government's move is not sitting well with some Mount Craven residents, as they say the temporary fix to the effects of the breakwater project is only protecting one area and is not in everyone's interest. More details in this GBN News report.
And major coastal erosion continues. For many, what's left are just fallen pillars and steps that once served as support for their homes. The Breakwater project was meant to put a stop to coastal degradation. However, since its construction, many are of the view that things have taken a turn for the worse, especially for residents along the coastline of Mount Craven and St. Patrick. Many have lost their homes and other property, while others have had to move to higher ground. Government in recent months have taken steps to find a temporary fix to the problem by creating a stone wall in one part of the affected area. Residents are not satisfied with that move and expressed their disappointment to the GBN News crew. This young man says he cannot afford to move as he does not have land to build elsewhere.
Done the whole thing. They could have done the whole thing because the land going. At least if they could have put it from the edge of the esplanade outside there, just come up to the lagoon. It could have worked still. Right. Yeah, because it's inside the water coming. So once that piece could have saved the water from coming inside, everything could have just be okay for the time being until they want to do whatever they want to do else. if you could have put it before the water reach all inside it. If you could have put it just on the coast of the land, you could have do that because you have much room for you to do that, but you wait until water reach quite inside it.
Well, temporary is always not full. Anytime you use the word temporary, that means things not done yet. I mean, it must have a better to come. And I find for decades now, we don't see that better coming and we need to see it.
This individual says his mom, who lived on this spot all her life, now has to leave what she owned and start renting elsewhere because of the danger posed.
Presently now she can be convertible because where she is not really hard. She just renting. She live here and she live a good home to go and rent, so that could never be good. She must have us to move out because you could watch the house and you could see what's going on, you know.
About 4 families, GBN was told, have been relocated and have received assistance from government with building materials. Those who remain are calling on government to do something fast to salvage what's left of their homes and property as they cannot afford to move.
Just like I do up in the Malang Wall, look for instance, they put the wall alongside the road and they save years now that day, and he hold up very good, so they could do the same thing here too.
The people around need a speed in recovery because too long now we're in this pain and we need that one to be cured.
Chrislina John, GBN News.
We return to Trinidad and Tobago, where chairperson for the Archdiocese Ministry of Migrants and Refugees, Leila Ramdeen, is again urging government to allow Venezuelan children access to an education. Speaking during a UWI webinar on international migration and human rights on Friday, she said there have been numerous calls to government on the issue and recalled a statement made by the Prime Minister on the issue.
Ms. Ramdeen says there have been numerous calls to government on the issue and recalls a statement made by the Prime Minister on the issue. She says space to allow migrant children access to education has been secured and they are now awaiting government's authorization on the matter.
We continue to knock on the Minister of National Security's door to waive the need for a permit to be granted to each child and to send a waiver to the Chief Immigration Officer so that nearly 3,000 Venezuelan children can enter our Catholic schools. You recall, the Prime Minister said we're not allowing them in our state schools, but if the Catholic Church want to have them in our Catholic schools, we can do so. So we found spaces, and yet since 2018, we can't get the waiver, so the children legally cannot enter schools.
Ms. Ramdeen believes access to education is imperative, even for children who may not be legal citizens of a country.
And the principals and teachers can go to jail if they try to educate without this waiver. Since Venezuelan children are not allowed to enter schools, they need an opportunity to learn. Many of them are left alone while their parents go out to work or go looking for work.
We kick off sports with football. A 23-man squad for Jamaica's upcoming FIFA World Cup qualifying games have been named by interim Reggae Boys coach Paul Hall. Out are Javon Watson, Leon Bailey, Shamar Nicholson and Anthony Grant. In is Blackpool's defense midfielder Kevin Stewart. Reggae Boys will host Mexico to an empty stadium on Thursday. Last year, it was projected that a limited number of vaccination spectators could attend the qualifiers, but with the island now in a COVID-19 fourth wave, no spectators will be allowed. The boys will travel to Panama City to face that country on a Sunday. They return home to entertain Costa Rica on February 2. The top 3 teams at the end of the 14-game series earn automatic qualifications for the Qatar World Cup finals, with the 4th-placed team earning an intercontinental playoff for another shot at Qatar. And in cricket, England beat the West Indies by 1 run to win the second 2020 international at Bridgetown on Sunday. The visitors managed to hold off a late order rally by Romario Shepherd and Akil Hussain to beat the regional team. In golf, Aaron Jarvis of the Cayman Islands won the 7th Latin America Amateur Championship at the Teeth of the Dog golf course in the Dominican Republic on Sunday. with a tournament score of 7 under par 281. His win makes it the first time that a Caribbean island is winning the championship. Jamaica's representative Justin Burrows battled his way during Sunday's final round to 34th place along with 4 other players from Trinidad and Tobago, St. Lucia, Mexico, and host country, the Dominican Republic. The 4 golfers to share second place are Santiago de la Fuente of Mexico, Fred Biondi of Brazil, Vicente Mayo, and Mateo Fernandez de Oliveira of Argentina. They all shot 6 under par 282. Burrows entered the final day tied on 23rd with 3 other golfers, but had his roughest day of the championship to post 6 over par 78 for a combined score of 10 over par 298.
So not the day that I was kind of hoping for, but again, another huge learning experience. I'm super proud of my very good friend Aaron Jarvis on the win. Kind of opened the door for us Caribbean guys. Yeah, like I grew up playing golf with him. I mean, I've beaten him, he's beaten me. It kind of just shows that we in the Caribbean we have the talent to do it, and to kind of have a guy open the door for us is huge. And yeah, I'm just looking forward to the next lap, and just gonna go with what I learned from this week and apply it to the next tournament. So.
Jamaica's other representative at the championship, William Nibbs, did not make the cut on the back of scores of 12 over par 84 on day 1 and 3 over par 75 on day 2. And with that, we're out of here. You've just watched the news on PBCJ. Remember, we are the People's Station.